Hey, this is Elizabeth Haslett from Silver Nest Homeschooling, mama for homeschooling for 11 years, getting ready to graduate our first senior. But I want to take a time back and talk about the early years. Those first years that we started homeschooling, we were nervous, we were scared. I was way too concerned about perfection. I was way too concerned about doing it right, way too concerned about making sure that they were getting a better education in the public school rather than an education that was suited to each of them and the calling and the purpose that they had. Thankfully, those years are gone. Now we're in like French 4 and we're dealing with college classes and all kinds of things. And we're recognizing that each child journeys at their own pace, and even mamas get to learn and grow as homeschool parents. So one of the purposes I made this channel was I really wanted to take the time to help you be able to have your homeschooling journey be one of encouragement, and also one to maybe if I've made some mistakes along the way, might help you out, or if I have some tips and tricks, they might encourage you. So this one is more of a tip and trick. This is a favorite book of mine, Sailing Home. It's a story by an author or an illustrator is Ted Rand, and his wife Gloria wrote this book, and they're actually friends of my in-laws, and so it's not the only reason I love his art, but it is one of the reasons I love his art so much. And I want to teach you how to use a system that we used, a curriculum at the very first years called 5 in a Row. Great curriculum. Love it. You take the same book and you read it 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, same book every day. But the first day you might talk about the art. The second day you might talk about English. The third day it might be a science, and the fourth day might be a math. And then each day you're learning from the same book. And once I learned the system, I realized I could use volume 1 for a whole year, volume 2 for a whole year, volume 3 for a whole year, and then just trade out some of the books or add to the books using the same system with books that I wanted my kids to read. While I love their curriculum so much, and I recommend it to anyone with small kids, because you sit down, you read that book, and it's to all the small kids at the same time, right? So early elementary, my preschooler, kindergartner, and second grader could all sit and hear the same story, and every one of them benefit. And I could unit study it where I would pull in a lot of other books that had to do with the same topic and just make a big stack, and we would read the first one, but then we'd also read the others. Oh, and I could run off on all the different tangents that the kids wanted to run off of. We added our Matthew C and our Explode the Code phonics, and that was our curriculum, and it worked great. It was great foundation, lots of couch time. So how would I do that with this book, which is not part of the 5 in a Row curriculum? So the first thing I would do is day 1, I would read it, and I'd probably choose the art. And in this case, I would ask the kids to identify what kind of art made this, and it is watercolor. And so then we would get out paint after we read the story, and we would paint with watercolor. We would maybe learn a new watercolor technique. Maybe we would learn what wet on wet did, or maybe we would, that's where you wet the paper and then paint over it with more wet. Or dry. Try to see the difference between the two. Make it almost science-y in the work. The other thing that you would do is read it the second day, and it talks a lot about obviously ships and sailing. So maybe we would do a piece about how things float, or how things sink, or why do they float, or why do they sink. Or maybe if they've already studied that, maybe we would study ships, sailing ships, learn about traveling over the ocean. This is kind of the geography portion of it. Maybe we could figure out on the map where they started, where they ended. Maybe we would read other books like how to make an apple pie and see the world, and follow those ships. And then the next day we do math. In this case, this book is really easy for the math because they're actually homeschooling on the boat. You can see that, but they actually learn mathematics and history and all the things on the boat. And there's a whole part where they count. There's a whole bunch of animals, and so we would count how many animals. Now again, you're thinking lower elementary, so for the kindergartners, preschoolers, maybe they count all the animals and they get 12, you know, and that's what they would be doing while you're reading the story, or when the story's over, go back and find that page. And then like they talk about Japan, so you could actually take off on a tangent, learn about Japan if you're doing your geography. All those are options, right? You're the one pulling out the things that kids are interested, and you're the one pulling out things from the story that they would maybe not know about yet, since you're the mom. You kind of know what you've already covered. Then day 4, then we would be going over, so you've got math, geography, and arts. The next one would be English. So this one, they'd be looking for words that they didn't know. I always like to do English really on the first day. So maybe they would be looking for new vocabulary, or maybe they'd be looking for alliteration, or maybe they'd be looking for onomatopoeia words. Pick one thing, and then they go through the book with you and they try to find that one thing. Or they could write their own story. If they really want to, they can sit down and create a story, or you could use story dice and tell a story about what it would be like if we went on a boat, and what would we need on the boat, and make lists and practice handwriting, all those things. Very organic, and very much doable. Look at the fun monkey. And then science. This book has so many options for science. Obviously, I already talked about buoyancy, but there's so many different animals, and there's longitude and latitude, and there's the globes and the maps and all the things from geography. But then there's also like, there's a huge storms. You could study weather. You could study ocean animals. You could study the animals that they saw in all the places. Like little kids like animals, right? They do like that. And then the other thing we often had them do was build a Lego creation diorama of some kind that would talk to them, like would explain to me that they understood what the story was about. So if it was Arctic, they would build a polar habitat, or if it was they could build me a ship and put the things on the ship that they would need. Or we could build a ship out of boxes and sit in the living room, and everyone would gather the top things that they would want in their ship, and we'd have our snack in the ship, right? It's that flexible. It's that simple. Or you can even simplify it down. If you're saying, oh, that sounds very stressful, just go back. You read the book. You learn about one subject a day, one topic a day. And it can be that easy. And it can be any book that you already own, or any book from the library. You don't have to go out and buy books. You can do, your favorite Jan Brett. You could do Patricia Polacco. This one's a harder one. Pink and Say. This is about the Civil War. Learning to read. All those things. A little bit of an older student book. My favorite from this is my book from when I was a kid, George and Martha. So most any book works. If the kids love the book, you can pull things out of it. If they don't know the book, but you've always loved the book, then you can try there. There's a lot of great lists online for great books for different ages. You can go from that list if you're looking for something new. The important thing is just to remember that these younger ages may or may not retain as much as an older child, but what you're trying to do is expose them experientially to as many things as possible so that they can just expand, right? So when we did levers and things, we went to the playground and we used the seesaw to do the lever, to show the lever. When we did the buoyancy, we actually got a bucket and dropped stuff and guessed before we dropped it. Is it going to go under? Is it going to stay off? And the 5 in a Row book tells you what books to use and the options. So they'll have like science, but it'll be like 5 different science options. It'll be art, maybe like 3 or 4 ideas you can pull out of it for art. So, and then you're picking one. Right, it's one. Keep it simple. Remember the kindergarten, first grade, you're only looking preschool, 10 minutes a day at the most, 5 to 10 minutes a day of math, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 of English, meaning like phonics or handwriting. That's it. And then a book and an activity. And honestly, preschool, kindergarten, even up to first grade, that's all they need. They need a lot of playtime. They need a lot of Play-Doh. The Play-Doh actually strengthens their hands so they can learn to write. There's so many kinetic and things that are making all kinds of connections in their brain. Being outside, I can't emphasize enough the importance of being outside, reading to them more. Like we go to pick the main spine, and I go to the library and pick like all the books about hippos, all the books about hammocks, all the books about, and we would just get a huge stack and we would just read the ones we wanted to read, take them all back next week, pick out a whole bunch of new books. That way I was reading the same book over and over, but they were getting different books with new information. There's something about the repetition at that age that is really important for learning. There's something about that foundational repetition that really helps the kids think about things at a deeper level. They're asking different questions by Friday than they were on Monday. So I hope that helps. You can do a 4 in a row. Sometimes we would only do it 4 days and take the 5th day off of this kind, and I would just jump into the other books. Also, I have friends who love the book so much that they found so many interesting things in it, they would take the same book and use it for 2 weeks straight, not just one. They want to do all the projects, and so they'd slow it down. It's your pace. It's your pace. So I hope that helped. I know it's just so brave of you to just go out there and be homeschooling these great kids and helping them and learning all the things you want to learn so that you can help them learn. It's just awesome. It's awesome. It's an awesome opportunity. It's a privilege, and I know you don't take it lightly, and I know you're probably just as stressed as I was, but you're going to figure it out. Give yourself the time, give yourself the grace each day. If they're learning something, if there's progress, then you're winning. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Talk to you next time.